Fujikura Vista Pro series, is this one of the best value shafts on the market? Keep watching if you want to know. Fujikura Vista Pro line. Now the Vista Pro line has always been known as one of Fujikura's value options, so it's not the same high price point as the Ventus or the Speeder series, but actually over the years has been a shaft and a shaft range that has gone through a couple of iterations, but has always been one that's sold very well. Partly the price point, significantly less than the top of the range shafts, but performance relative to price point has been very, very good. So what is it about this series of Vista Pro? There was a launch in 2016 and there was a second version launched back into 2021 how does it compare to the other shafts? So one of the elements of this is there have been major learnings from developments in materials with the Ventus and the Velocore, that they've been able to use some of that learning and put it into this product. So what does that actually mean? So one of the bits with the Vista Pro line is that they have a multi-material bias core. So essentially what they're managing to do is take out the smaller parcels of materials that they've used to stabilise particular areas of the shaft, and now they're at a point where they can put them all the way through. So rather than small pockets of materials with small pockets of stability, that material runs all the way down. So it gives a smoother transition, smoother feel, but just more consistency, more resistance to ovaling. And so what that gives you is then more consistency of bore flight. And some of those developments in the past have allowed them to do this at a better value, better price point than they would have done previously. So relative to previous series and a general profile of shaft, the Vista Pro series is a sort of a soft to mid butt section so that you get a little sensation of loading. If you make the grip end too hard, too stiff, then you lose quite a lot of feel. So this isn't a shaft that's designed to be the most solid, most rigid feeling shaft you've got, because it's actually designed to give you some feedback and give you some extra kind of pop and performance. So the slightly less stiff grip section is really key to that, but they're then able to go more stable in the midsection to control spin and to control that launch profile as well. So they've softened the butt section a little bit from the first generation, firmed up the midsection, and then through some of the materials in the core, in the tip section, that allows them to keep that responsiveness but keep the consistency. So it's a little bit of a soft, firm, and a little bit less firm in the tip, and that really gives feel, stability, control, and that carries across all the wood line as well as the hybrid shafts, and the same materials, the same technology, for want of a better phrase, through into the hybrids as well as the wood shafts. They range in weights from they go from 45, 55, 65, 70 series, and that ranges from 48 grams to 75 grams. So there's a really wide variation of options open to you. But obviously we've got a driver, a fairway and a hybrid setup here. What does that actually mean from a feel and from a playing point of view? So I'm going to hit a few with each and give you a little bit of insight into what they actually feel like and what kind of performance you can expect to see. From a price point of view, they sit where you've got the Ventus and the Speeder NX lines at 300, 350 plus. From a reshaft point of view, the Vista Pro wood shaft is around the 150 mark, 140, 150, and the hybrid option around the 120 mark. So actually, whereas a Ventus hybrid, you're going to be up just over the £200 mark. So there's actually a significant reduction in pricing, which is one of the attractions of the Vista Pro line. But that's not to say it's not a good quality product. I think that's one thing not to be confused with this range. So I'm going to swing, this one's the Vista Pro, the 55R. So going to go the 55R on the driver, 65S in the fairway and the 70S in the hybrid, and just give a bit of feedback on what they feel like to swing and what kind of performance you can expect. So one of the things that's most noticeable is that sensation of a little bit of load in the shaft. Yeah, granted, it's a slightly lighter shaft than I would play normally. However, actually within the swing as you start down, the shaft gives you a little bit of back. You're not going to sense that you've got to work it hard to get a response from it. So let's hit another couple. So there's definitely a little bit of that load and kick through the ball. So as I say, not a shaft that you're going to feel like you're going to have to work hard to get a response from. Having said that, it's not a flippy shaft. There are some that, because of the way the materials run through the mid and the tip section, it doesn't feel like it flicks at the bottom. So something that you're not going to have to be someone who really loads it heavily to get something back from it, but it's not going to feel loose through the ball either. So really quite a, in some respects, you can really feel where that midsection's stable, doesn't give out on you, but there's a little bit of action through the tip. And so for me, this is giving a little bit of extra launch, but most noticeably, it's not something that's flaring spin up. So if I move on to fairway wood, we go up a little bit of weight into the fairway wood. One other thing actually with the Vista Pro line is their balance point is a little bit lower than mid. So it's going to be something that's going to help keep a bit of feel for the club head as well, keep a bit of feel for the bottom half of the shaft. So it's going to help the club just to drop into plane a little bit versus some of the other shafts at this weight range. So as we move into fairway wood, again with the slightly heavier heavier head on the fairway wood, definitely you get a little bit more sensation of kick and load through the shaft. So again, certainly probably more so in the fairway than a driver, get a little bit of more sensation of responsiveness through the shaft. And certainly that stronger midsection that they developed for this series definitely keeps a feeling of control through the ball. And so it sounds a bit maybe strange to say it feels like there's some control with a bit of responsiveness, but it's where that's happening in the shaft that's really the key thing. So definitely a little bit of load in the handle, stable in the midsection, a little bit of action in the tip. And that carries on from driver through to the fairway wood, but more exaggerated in the fairway wood because of the heavier head on it. So again, a little bit of extra launch on it. The head style is in the fairway is going to really override a lot of the spin characteristics, but certainly helps get a feeling of a little bit of kick and a little bit of launch. And now moving on to the hybrids. So the hybrid shafts also, as with the wood shafts, the hybrid shafts run from a 48 gram through to a 75 gram. So in the woods and the hybrids, they go from really quite a lightweight shaft up to, I guess you'd call it for stronger mid-weight. But they don't, since they sit more in the mid ranges of the weight categories, they don't kick up too high. So you tend to be 55 to 57. So 47, 48 in the lightest, 55 to 57 in the 55, 65 to 67 in the 65, and then 74, 75 in the 75, which might sound an obvious comment to make, but actually quite a lot of the shafts sit at the very top end of those weight ranges. So they sit very much in those middle ranges. So in the hybrid, you generally always get a little bit of a different feel in the hybrid to fairway woods. So certainly in the hybrid, there's a there's a more solid feel to them. So in the fairway woods and the driver, you can get that sensation of load, a little bit of response. As we move into the hybrid, that lower half of the shaft stabilizes up a little bit more. And they do, in the hybrids, they ramp up a little bit in that respect. So proportionally, the 70 feels a little bit more sturdy than the 60. The 60 feels a bit more sturdy than the 50. So the 70 plays a stiffer profile as well, whereas in the wood shafts, they're a little bit more consistent. So in this, definitely suits, similarly a little bit of tip balance to it, but someone who wants a slightly more solid feeling shaft, you definitely don't get that same element of kick up like you do with the wood shafts. So, I would say anyone who tends to prefer to feel like they're squeezing the ball out of the hybrids, then this shaft at 75 grams at least feels like you can play that shot a little bit more. So it allows me to feel like I can get down onto the ball without that bottom end losing and without that loss of stability through the ball. So really, in summary on the Vista Pro series, there's a lot of development of tech over the years that's gone into this product. It's gradually become a higher grade material, but from a price point of view, it's something that we use a lot, particularly in fairway woods, because of that feeling of kick, but really punches above its weight in terms of price point too. So really good quality materials made by one of the top brands, and certainly something to consider in your clubs in the future.